So we are live on Facebook as well, and we'll start at 2:30. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Leadership Series. Thank you all for joining. I'm excited to open the third edition of our series of webinars discussing various topical themes that are extremely relevant in current times. Today, we're going to discuss a topic that is very close to each one of us because it has become our collective new reality, remote working. We're going to ask some very pertinent questions to a panel of experts and make the most of this opportunity by learning from their perspective and vast experience to unearth critical insights on how remote working is making paradigm shifts in the workspace framework since last 6 months. Today's webinar will be moderated by Mr. Amit Ramani, founder and CEO of Awfis. Over the past 5 years, under Amit's guidance, our company has evolved to become one of the most recognized brands in the flexible workspace industry. I'm excited to see him lead today's session to build a constructive dialogue with our esteemed panelists. So without much ado, let me begin by introducing our panelists for the session. It is my honor to introduce Mr. Anshul Jain, Managing Director, India and Southeast Asia, Cushman & Wakefield. With his well-rounded domain expertise and an exceptionally strong penchant towards delivering client solutions, Anshul is currently responsible for driving growth and development of Cushman & Wakefield in India and Southeast Asia. Welcome to the panel, Anshul. We are excited to hear from you. Next, we have Jaggi Marwa, CEO, Prestige Office Ventures, another highly recognized leader with immense experience in the real estate industry. He is responsible for leading the growth and development of Prestige Group's office business. A very warm welcome to the panel, Jaggi. We're thrilled to have you here. Now, coming to our next panelist, Ms. Suma PM, Director HR, Otis India. She's leading HR, Industrial Relations, and Administration at Otis. She has over 29 years of experience in leading human resources across varied industries. She won the Global Leadership Award by Dale Carnegie and 101 Top HR Minds Award by World HRD Congress in 2019. Welcome, Suma. Look forward to your valuable insights on the topic. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Nikhil Kamath, co-founder and CIO Zerodha, one of India's largest retail stock brokerage company. He has been featured in the Forbes 30 under 30 Finance and Tycoons of Tomorrow's list. He's also the co-founder of True Beacon, a disruptive asset management company catering to ultra high net worth investors across the globe. Welcome to the panel, Nikhil. We're looking forward to hearing your views on remote working. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Sumit, for the introductions. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. 6 months into the pandemic, remote working no longer just a blip in Lives a Million, but has in fact become a way of life. It's completely transforming the work landscape where overnight companies were forced to adapt to the new approaches while taking care of their employees. In the past 6 months, we have seen organizations changing their work policies, restructuring their offices, redefining performance measurement, and transforming their business models to stay relevant in the evolving times. Like every new change, even remote working has two sides. While many large corporates have been noticing the benefit and have announced work from home for large portion of their workforce for another year, or even permanently in few cases, according to a recent Brookfield report, working from home will ultimately become a supplement to rather than a substitute for the office. Our panel today consists of industry rock stars who are experts in their respective domains. We extend a warm welcome to all of them and would like to know their perspectives on different aspects of this latest work trend. So let me start with the discussion. Jaggi, firstly, many congratulations on your recent move to Prestige Office Ventures and a fantastic job on my Feed My City initiatives. 5 million plus meals to the migrant workers, outstanding. Obviously, you are doing a new beginning amidst all the current crisis and virtually leading a new team. So how has your experience been so far in managing a new team virtually? And do you think Indian companies can manage remote work for long, or is it going to be a temporary phenomenon? Jackie, you're on mute.
Thank you, Amit. It's always a pleasure to hear from you, and you are no less a bigger rock star than all of us here. You built a very substantial business out of almost nothing, and I remember from our days of WeWork, we've always been having a mutual fondest memories of doing business together. You built a very good platform where I think a very large working population have called your places their home. But thank you for this. And yes, I moved over from, I've actually life's taken a full circle around for me. But, this pandemic has taught us a lot. And like you mentioned, I was part of a social initiative that few friends put together, never realized how we could make a meaningful contribution to the world, especially, the migrant laborers and daily wage earners. And thanks to a lot of corporates who really chipped in. All we used was Rolodex to help each other. Yes, we did about 4.5 million meals. That was a endearing kind of a time. Lockdown has taught us lots and lots, from that perspective. And each one of us are grateful for the lives that we live today. The corporate life teaches you a lot of balances, but I think work from home is a new paradigm shift. For the last 10 years, we've been hearing that word, but nobody, even a common man today, knows what WFH stands for. And I think that's a big. Even my 82-year-old father knows about the pangs of WFH. But having said that, I think I was also reading the same Brookfield report. How it has changed us is quite clearly that yes, we have an alternate life, which is apart from coming to office. But actually, as most of us are, we all know that the social contact, the human touch and feel of doing business is something different, and you can't replace that. Take, for example, this call. I know I know three of you very well out of this group, and it takes about 10-15 minutes for you to understand body language of somebody, how he responds to what you say, and all of that. So that's one part of the business. When coming into a new team, if it was not for physically coming to office, I would never understand culture of an organization. So it's very tough for anyone, no matter how smart or how good you are at work, till you don't understand your team's culture, till you don't understand the ethos of your organization, what you stand for. I don't think you can't make leaders in any organization. So that's one. Second is also from the perspective of capability and the talent pool. Today we are exposed to so many people who for whom lives matter. Whether they're working in office or working outside office. In India especially, I was actually doing a call with some time back when I was in JLL. We took a call and 85, 90 people were on call. And I asked, how many of you have your own single cabin to work out of or a work from home comfortable position without nobody disturbing you? Hardly about 4 or 5 people had their own individual desks in their home. Some of them were taking calls from the basement of the car, some were in the balcony, some were walking, some were in the toilet, some were in the kitchen. So it's not easy. It's not been an easy ride, but yes, we have evolved. The Indian resilience of doing business, the work ethic has helped us a lot to come out of this. And I think it stands testimony to the fact that, we are actually moving the wheels of the economy today more than anything else. And I think the resilience of our businesses, young founders like Nikhil's business, I've been following them up, and honestly, these are the times where all of us need to innovate. And I think we'll be back very, very shortly. And this work from home, in my view, if you want one simple answer, is a great alternative for people who can afford to work out of home. But typically, in larger conglomerates, in larger teams, in larger organizations, you really need to be cohesive, collaborate, and social interaction is a must. The water cooler talk is part of it. So I'll leave that to you.
Thank you, Jackie. So Nikhil, congratulations on Zero Dha's recent valuation of $1 billion, the only unicorn in India to have been achieved that bootstrap. So that's fantastic. So obviously you're achieving new strides with almost 100% growth. I was reading since the pandemic. That's the user base that you've added which is reflective of a thorough and a collaborative decision making might be happening with you virtually, right? So how do you ensure that your company continues to grow even though the mode of working has changed drastically overnight? What were some of the
Right.
immediate steps that you took so that the company to ensure the business continuity as well as continue to implement your growth plans?
Sure. So, hi, Amit, firstly. I think we were one of the few businesses which got very lucky during the pandemic. We are primarily a online broker. Most of what we do can happen online very easily. From the office perspective, even before the lockdown, a week or two before the lockdown, we had everybody working from home. I will have a slightly contrarian opinion of real estate and office spaces because I don't come from this industry. So for someone like us, it has been a blessing in disguise. I think we have realized that we don't need to have all of our people co-located in a physical office to remain efficient. 95% of our staff is working from home right now. The company on the top line definitely saves a lot of money in margins by not having to spend that infra cost. People save money because they don't spend that much time on travel anymore. And net net, we have come to realize that the ecosystem is a lot more efficient this way. So I'm not making a case for somebody to not have an office, but maybe they don't need to be to the scale that you accommodate every single employee of yours at one time in that building. So you could have offices which are smaller where people can convene from time to time, but the necessity to have one office which has everybody in there at the same time might no longer be relevant. And I don't think this is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing which will make companies more efficient, and not just in terms of revenues, but in terms of, if you think of things like, climate change and carbon emissions and electricity and transport costs. I think it's good for the ecosystem overall.
Thanks, Mikkel. Suma, so you are leading a human resource for a global MNC in India and privy to how managers and employees are coping with this new normal across the world. So many were calling this phase as a human resources nightmare. How did it turn out for you globally? How did Otis dealing with the various aspects? What kind of are you planning to return to offices? Is the entire workforce going to come back? Or tell us about your plans at Otis, both globally and locally in India.
Thank you, Amit, for inviting me to be part of this esteemed panel. My pleasure to be here. At Otis, our employees are spread across the country. We have the employees working in our factory, engineering center, we have the field employees, and we have the sales and the staff working across different offices. Our factory is in Bangalore, as well as our engineering center that's in Bangalore. Our corporate office is in Dubai. Our regional offices are in Delhi, Kolkata, Mumbai, Bangalore, and we have the branch offices spread across the country. So immediately after the initial lockdown relaxation, we opened the factory fairly quickly. Our factory is in Bangalore. It's Jigani in Bangalore. So our objective was to a safe place, a safe factory where the people could come and work without the fear of the pandemic. So we did a lot to accomplish that. Apart from the government norms, Otis had its own stringent norms, the sanitization, social distancing, health check, and varied aspects. And another challenge was people had gone to their hometown during the intense lockdown. So we got to get them back, have them complete the quarantine period before we could get them to work. So that was a challenge we worked through. For the field professionals, we were supporting our customers with the emergency breakdown, even during the intense lockdown in the month of April and May. And what is, as a company, we are a very safety-oriented company. And safety comes in terms of our top absolutes, ethics, safety, and quality. So we always focused on safety from the product standpoint, from the process standpoint, and also from the people standpoint. Now, with the COVID, it brought another dimension of safety. So apart from the personal protective equipments, we also have to work, just not employee, with the families also, because just training the employees is not good enough in this case. They come to work, they visit several sites, they go back to home, and then you have other members in the family also going out. So we got to create that ecosystem where we are training just not our employees, but orienting and training the entire family members. And then we have to ensure that the technician is able to travel to the work site, the travel time is reduced, the sites where they are going are safe. So those were the areas which we predominantly were focusing in the field. Majority of our staff, yes, continue to work from home. And the aspects which we have to focus initially was enhancing the IT infrastructure. So everybody is able to work and the adoption to the technology. So we've got to train the people and get them to speed in certain aspects. So they're comfortably able to do the virtual meetings, virtual training sessions, development sessions, etc. So a lot of work we kind of focused in that particular area. As of now, all our offices are open with full safety and hygiene precautions. Communication is something we focused a lot. We used multiple channels of communication, whether it is the central communication desk, WebEx meetings, Yammer, which is equivalent to a Facebook, various things. So we are encouraging our field people to go directly to the field and attend to the customer calls. And a very small portion of the people are coming to the office currently, but otherwise, the majority of our staff continue to work from home. In places like Bangalore, where the things have opened up a lot more, we have kind of following a hybrid approach. So all the people are not in the office at a single point of time. I would say one of the positives from this entire situation I see is that when people eventually get back to the office, their response to the work would have changed and hopefully for the better. And so the companies and people will be a lot more flexible, adaptable, and also understanding.
Sure. Great, Suma. Anshul, as part of your role leading one of the biggest property consultants in India and South Asia, you are at a vantage point of witnessing a shift in the workplace strategies of large corporates. What are the key trends that you're seeing driving most of the real estate decisions right now? Are companies open to considering remote working as a long-term strategy, or is it only an immediate term disruption? Anshul, your voice is not coming through. No, Anshul.
Hello.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
All right. Yeah. All right. So I think I break this discussion into a tale of two quarters so far, right? So I think, or two blocks of 3 months each. So when we looked at the sort of second quarter, which was effectively, rise of COVID in India and in Southeast Asia and in most of Asia, really except China. The immediate discussion around the world was that of it was quite a knee-jerk reaction, and it just seemed that work from home, WFH, became a very fashionable word. It almost became a rhetoric, and it appeared that the CEOs and CFOs around the world, with respect to everyone's strategy, it just appeared that there was a fear of missing out by not saying that WFH would be a real thing and a permanent thing, right? So if you recall the second quarter, which was the first quarter of COVID around the world, the discussions were around work from home permanently, what's the need for the office, and so on and so forth, right? And it was led by a few companies in the tech space, and then a lot other companies quickly followed, and even a few companies in the BPO sector, in the banking sector, said, okay, maybe we can reduce our space by 50% or 75% by 2025 or 2030, right? But that narrative has started changing in the third quarter, where I think most companies have gone a little deeper into the actual issues around working from home from an operational perspective, the feasibility perspective, and also the narrative around people themselves wanting to come back to office, right? And therefore, what Nikhil was saying just now is becoming more of a narrative to say we don't want to get rid of the office. The office is still a point of socialization. It becomes more of a social space. And mind you, the office as a social space is not a concept. It's not a COVID concept, right? Office as a social space, the concept really started about, I would say, about 3 or 4 years ago, and people like LinkedIn, etc., really led with a cool concept where people would just come to collaborate and then disperse out. And I think that conversation has become very real, and that conversation, I think, is going to become a reality. To your question, whether people right now are putting the money where the mouth is, the answer simply is no. So short term, a few companies have taken a decision they can get out of their leases. It's a good way to just save cost in this recession. Let's do that. So a lot of companies have taken that knee-jerk reaction to say, let's save cost now. Let's figure out later, maybe next year, whether we want to come back to the office and in what shape and form. So that's happened. Existing companies have companies come to us or are in the market to say we want to redesign our space, and permanently, no. Temporarily, yes. So a lot of people, including us, and I'm sure you realigned your space, and you see restaurants realigning their space to make sure that the social distancing norms are followed. So there are a lot of temporary measures. We've been running focus groups with a number of industries around what are they thinking. And I think, and we've run industry groups in the banking sector, we've run industry groups in the BPO sector, we've run industry groups in the global capability center. So, a focused industry group on global capability centers. We've run industry groups across Asia for large sort of occupiers. In the 4 industry groups that we've run in the last 6 weeks, not one company has come and said that we have a master plan and this is how it's going to be. Now, a lot of people are saying, of course, we are on drawing board. Most of the narrative is, yes, there'll be more flexibility. A lot of people are grappling with what Jaggi said about the Indian social constraints within our houses. It's all well to say working from home in a European setting or an American setting where perhaps there's a lot more space, particularly in the American setting. Forget the culture, I'm not talking about the softer things right now, right? But it's just about, are you able to implement a work from home in a social setting like India, where people do not have individual spaces and they are in each other's spaces all the time. And the last bit I'd like to say is that we saw a lot of productivity. You always see productivity during the time of recession for those who are working, because people are scared they're going to lose jobs. Plus, in this case, there was no distraction. So you work hard, otherwise you're going to be first out the door, right? And that happens. Now, in a booming market, when the economy is improving and people have options to get jobs, there are distractions, there's live sports on TV, the malls are open, and your neighborhood shopping center is open full stream, and you're getting together. I still have that question, and I might be completely wrong on this, but I still have my question mark on long-term productivity. So in a nutshell, I think work from home, absolutely, the more flexibility. What shape and form, I don't think anybody of us knows it today.
So thank you, Anshul. Moving along to our next section. So remote working, what are kind of the silver linings? What are the downsides? So at Awfis...
Amit, before you get in, I just wanted to say something, and this is also for Nikhil. While companies are announced officially through public releases saying that, we don't want our employees to come back to work till June next year. Some are saying March next year. Some are saying January next year. But the same companies are not stopping signing leases even as we speak. So on one side, what Anshul was saying is absolutely right. They are also aware that this may be a temporary phenomena where you need to keep the wheels of the economy going, your own company's productivity going. But on the other side, business as usual will continue post this scenario. Facebook announced the same thing. They they told the employees not to come to work till March, till whatever vaccine. They just signed last week of, I think middle of August, they signed 750,000 square feet in New York downtown in Manhattan. So it's a mixed bag, and like all of us are struggling right now. We really don't know what's going to come out of this box that we are all in right now. But we can't be sitting in like rats in the hole and waiting for the vaccine to come. Then we come out. I think lives have to continue. The livelihood call that the government has taken, like most governments have taken, I think it's a prudent call, because you just can't have an economy locked down completely. So that's just I want to share.
No, absolutely agree with that, Jaggi. And that's obviously near and dear to our co-working heart. So absolutely want people to come back. So we completed a survey recently of about 1,000 respondents, right, across various industries, micro level, to get an understanding of this new work style, right? We were really surprised that a whopping 74% said that they were willing to work from home continuously, right? So not come back. The other 80% of them said that their job can be done from any remote environment, right? What did emerge was that cost savings and time savings, which Nikhil alluded to, right? So employees were saving about 5,500 rupees a month in commute costs, and they were saving an hour and a half in terms of their travel time, which equals almost 44 additional working days from saving that time. Now, interestingly, this was done over June and July. On this poll, where we have 250 plus participants, half of them are saying that remote working is not here to stay, and other 32% are saying maybe. So clearly, obviously, there is a change in paradigm as we are moving along, right? So Suma, what according to you are some of the biggest challenges for employees in India versus developed countries? Also, what specific role can HR play in ensuring mental health and well-being while working remotely for employees? And how have you managed that those two aspects at Otis?
Amit, initially when the lockdown was announced and the people had to work from home, they enjoyed work from home and treated more like a perk. No travel, no pollution, more time at home. Uh, Now they are beginning to view the new reality differently. Yes, there are a lot of practical challenges, low internet bandwidth. You want to get into some very important meetings, and that's the time you have the issues, the background noises, and finding that appropriate place at house. The spouses are working, both of them different corners, children's online classes are going on. And as you know, a lot of our homes are not equipped with the home office setup. Now, with the long working hours and work from home, the people have begun to talk about ergonomics. Uh, and that's something which we are talking quite a bit about it now. It takes some effort, though setting up an ergonomically correct workplace can help maintain a neutral spine, protect the body from all kinds of pain in the neck and or back. So work from home has its own challenges due to the space constraints at home. At Otis, we focused on the overall well-being of our employees, which included the safety, reaching out, the communications, engaging the employees, outreach programs where they can connect remotely, development programs. I would say in the last 5 months, the amount of programs what we have done for our employees, we haven't done so much in the past years. And a lot more we did during the intense lockdown situations. Realigning the goals and milestones, because with the new reality that has shifted. So that needs to be realigned with the people, as more so when they are working from home, and empathy aspect. And one of the aspects we realized pretty early is we saw a lot of fear, anxiety, in the fear of uncertainty in the employees with regard to the pandemic. So to support the mental health, we revived our employee well-being program, as we revived as early as the beginning of April. where the employees and families can go to a professional counselor for support through call or email or chat and various modes. And there's a stress control program. There is a mindfulness program. It's all under the professional coaches. And it's a confidential program. But when I look at the report, which I'm getting on a month-to-month basis, the number of employees who have spoken to the counselors or the reasons of they contacting the counselors, it's sleep disorders, eating disorders, anger, caregiver challenges, conflict, balancing home and office, a lot of them. So looking at those reports, I really feel so good that I'm glad we recognize this particular mental health aspects pretty early and ensured that we have some support system available for our employees. So at this point of time, what I would say is what's required is empathy. Empathize and look out for one another. And so to this effect, at Otis, we have built a lot of empathy or compassion into the way we are communicating with the employees. So this situation, we don't know how long it's going to last. But I would say that a lot more needs to be done compared to the pre-COVID situation, a lot more need to be done at this point of time to connect and engage the employees.
Great, Suma. So, Jaggi, what according to you are some of the key opportunities that remote working has presented to the current generation new workforce? How can companies leverage these opportunities to maximize productivity?
So even though I'm not a big supporter of WFH, but what it has done, I'll tell you the reverse side first. The reverse side is people have lost respect for people's time. So what's happening is during this pandemic, people are calling you at 9:30 at night, 10 o'clock at night. So, that's one side of it. On the other side, what it has done is that it has just given them a little bit of flexibility, especially in the senior levels. You'll see that people are much more relaxed and people are actually taking breaks out and going outside their own homes into various other, weekly destinations and working at peace with their families. So that's one part of the thing. But the mid-level and the junior level guys, in my view, are much more stretched during this time, and I think it's unfortunate and it's unfair the way because after all, a lot of work, especially in the IT industry, I can tell you this much, that it's very tough for them to do work where the net connectivity is poor. On top of that, you have distractions at home, like Suma was telling, children there and all of that. But I think overall, if you actually go to see the fact that they are keeping their jobs alive in these kind of economic situations is, I think, the biggest positive that they can get. Because from the perspective that all of us are today, we're all professionals in the industry. And I think companies that survive this will actually go a long haul. And I think that's only possible when you have a workforce that is completely, motivated, professionally managed, and more importantly, collaborating, even in spite of not meeting in office. So I think it's a mixed bag. Like I always have been saying since this discussion started, we've never faced something like this where the whole world has had the same distress together. The economic fallout to the whole world is pretty much in the same manner. Some countries are doing different things. But I think overall, as organizations, I think if we can innovate and if we continue to be resilient and more importantly, keep the productivity quotient up, I think we will come out of this in the same manner that we are doing so far. Like Anshul mentioned, the first few 45 days were very depressing, but people found a way to come out of this first 45 days. And today, lockdown it's okay as long as you can manage the discipline of keeping social distancing, cleaning your hands and washing your hands and ensuring that you wear a face mask all the time. Nobody ever thought that this would be a design accessory or a wearable accessory for all of us. Today, it's part of our lives. So we've adapted as human race. We adapt to everything, whether it's low bandwidth at work, whether it's a distractive environment at work. But at the same time, work takes precedence over everything. And I think that's the resilience that the young country like ours is actually showing to the world.
On the sort of, if I can jump in on the sort of more positive side, while there are no borders to time at times, but I think in particular the younger generation should take cognizance of the fact that you're saving a couple of hours of travel time, which can be sort of obviously much more productively used for self. So whether it's focus on your health and just being away from the roads, the stress that it causes with traffic jams, etc. So I think there's definitely a well-being aspect of it. It's hard to focus, right? When you are 25, 26 and you're told that, use these 2 hours positively for your health, sometimes it's hard to focus. But I think, that's certainly, I think, a takeaway that people should think about, just to make sure that they come out healthier and refocus on themselves as well. It's 2 hours you gained.
And new talents. Everybody started cooking,
skill
everybody
development,
started playing music. These were never thought of pre-pandemic. So just think about it, the positive side of it.
People started trading. I opened a Zerodha account during the, that was my first trading account ever, which I actually ended up using as well. So, yeah.
So Nikhil,
I just want to add a point here.
Yeah, go ahead, Suma.
Yeah, regarding the long working hours. One of the contributor also is, see, when the business is doing very well, then it's a different, you don't need to have so many meetings, so much of discussions. And when the business isn't performing as you had expected in the beginning of the year, your plans are not going in the desired way. And that's when I would say a lot more meetings and a lot more discussions and lots more cost containment actions and needs to happen. So according to me, at certain level in the organization, that is also one of the aspects which is contributing. And secondly, when the things were going well, you know exactly what you needed to do, what you needed to deliver. Today, the customers' expectations also have changed all of a suddenly in the last couple of months. So to cater to that particular expectations, you got to align with the people. People need to understand. Sometimes you're not sure what you need to do. Should you be focusing here, there? I would say all these aspects also has contributed to a little bit of chaotic situations in the minds of the people. And that's where I would say the people like us come into the picture to bring in a lot more clarity and then help them to create some kind of a time boundary so that balancing of work and home can happen. And so this is going to continue for a lot more time.
Yeah, but just to add, there is also a very large service industry which has really suffered during this time. So I think, and that those jobs are very tough to replace because you're talented, you're trained in a particular manner, and you can't just work from home just because everybody else is working from home. So I think heart goes out to the people from the service industry because I think they are the big sufferers during this period. The F&B staff, the hotel staff, the airline staff, the hospitality side. I think that's one industry which is almost first in, last out. And they're going to really go through that curve. And I think that's one part where we will really need to, as a society, be more cautious to give opportunities to such people.
Sure. So Nikhil, coming over to you, you're launching a new innovative product, I think a loan against securities, right? Which is due in September as we speak. Just like Anshul, I also signed up for a Zerodha account and was
glad
interface and tools for trading. I'm not a trader, just like Anshul.
Yeah.
Certainly this helped do that. So what are new ways in which you are managing your teams remotely in the midst of all of this new products that you're launching? And then what are the challenges that managers are facing in monitoring performance remotely and obviously keeping the motivation levels high for your teams?
Yeah, sure. So, Amit, I don't think we're facing any of these issues. It's been really strange. I mean, almost surreal that we thought when people are not sitting with each other, it would be tougher for managers to manage. It would be harder to keep people aligned with the culture of the company, and it would be tougher to drive performance overall. Our experience has been totally different. I think people are very appreciative of the extra time they have at hand. And our main offices are in Bangalore, and in a city like Bangalore on Bannerghatta Road, I leave home at 8 a.m. to get to office, and it takes me 40 minutes, even though my office is 3 kilometers away. Outside of the time that it takes me, I think there is a lot of, traffic and honking and all of that. And you end up in the office feeling a certain way, which you do not if you have to wake up at home and go to work. So people are very happy. People are significantly outperforming over whatever they were doing while we were sitting together as a community in one office. So I think infra has to definitely improve significantly to even justify for us to bring people back to office. Again, I heard what the other participants were saying, and I think there is a kind of job which requires for people to collaborate. And there is another kind of job which is very repetitive and can be easily done from home. So I think the repetitive portion, it will make companies in India, especially the ones who are exporting services to other countries, intrinsically a lot more efficient because the cost required to run them will come down. I think it'll make India more competitive when it comes to those jobs. In terms of the kind of jobs which require creativity, management, collaboration, and stuff like that, I would rationalize this to being not more than 25% of the total workforce. Having an office for that workforce where they can come in from time to time, maybe not all 25% at the same time, would definitely make a lot of sense. Also, Amit, me personally, I'm very critical of real estate. I think real estate is a overinflated asset class in India, largely driven by how we culturally think about real estate. I think Indians are big lovers of owning land, not based on the yield one might receive from the land they have, but everybody in our generation and the previous generation has seen a one-way appreciation in the underlying value of land. I think most of the developers today and even the end users today have never really seen a significant correction in real estate. And we tend to believe that land prices can never correct. If you have to go back in history and look at other economies across the world, there is a case to be made as to why land across the world, but more so in India, is extremely overinflated right now. I think a correction, a significant correction in land prices will allow for developers to have the room to get more creative, build better offices, more efficient offices. They'll have more space at hand to make the entire office experience more better for the most part. I think right now, if you're going into an office and you're sitting in cubicles, I would much rather say you sit at home and you have more things to do. So
So
I
Nick,
would, in fact, say that
yeah,
a big
go ahead.
correction in land prices is really, really good. And I think it's long due. And if that were to happen, I think the new kind of office that people build and employees have access to will be much better for the environment overall.
No, that's I don't think that makes Jaggi or Anshul happy, but besides that point, I
I
think
think
it's a valid point, though, right?
no, it's not about our business or I think it's I think the moot point right now is that there are a number of contradictory views on this, right? And I think, in my view, and obviously Nikhil's running a very successful company, and so are a number of CEOs out there. In my view, I think we just don't have enough data. The data right now that we're seeing is a COVID period data, and it's a hard COVID recession period data. Now there will be some companies, absolutely, there'll be some business models which actually do not require you to come back to office. And I think was it Twitter which announced they're never going to come back to office, and what they've got hardly about 100 people, and they're all probably very rich people, anyways, right? But the question I have for Nikhil, for example, is, you are a fast-growing company, unicorn. I don't know how many people you have currently, but my bet is that if you're going the same pace, you'll be 3x and probably be adding 4,000 or 5,000 more people in the future. Have you sort of thought about how if all of them just come into your company and they're working from home, and if only 25% come and go, it becomes almost like a hotel. You go, you kind of meet a few people, but really you're a work from home kind of person. how do you actually build that company culture? And there may be an answer to it. I may be completely wrong, as I said. And one more point to that, right? I mean, work from home was a massive experiment and a reality in the US in the zeros. It was the first decade of this millennium, right? And a number of companies by the end of that millennium by the end of the decade or through this decade, actually started to pull people back from work from home back to offices, because they just felt that that the fabric of the productivity was long term falling, innovation was falling, there was no company cultures left, and Bank of America was a prime example in the US, along with a number of other companies. But the big question, so we've seen that in the past. Now with technology, the whole thing may change. But for you, I think the critical question that I would have is, you got 2,000-3,000 more people you might add in the next year or two. How do you, continue to build a company which feels like a zero thought? Right?
Sure. I mean, I think, like I said, for the repetitive job, say, for instance, our support team, maybe say 500 people who have a script, who have a certain kind of query which comes in, and they reply to the query in a manner which is kind of pre-programmed to a large sense.
Fair.
This can very easily be, communicated online, and you can bring them up to where people who have been in the office and shared the space with many people would have come. Outside of this, the people who need to collaborate, be creative, ideate, come up with new ideas, I think for now, I mean, Anshul, I might not be right for the long term, but for now, we have seen them be able to manage that online and do it from their homes.
Yep.
The new people who come in, which will incrementally add on to that team, I think we'll have some kind of a transition process wherein they work with some of these people, maybe in smaller groups versus a bigger office with 1,000 people. Maybe you have tiny offices in different places where they, hang out with 5-10 other people, work from time to time, and the culture maybe gets inculcated that way. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer here, but I would just say I'm surprised by how well people have coped with all that has gone on in the last 6 months. And that gives me some confidence as to, the future might be like that too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, sorry, Amit, I'm just taking a little bit more time. I think I'm 100% confident that the business models which for real estate and how companies use real estate pre-COVID is not going to happen post-COVID even 5 years later, right? I mean, but what exactly, in what shape and form will that emerge? Whether it will be 25%, whether it will be 50%, whether it will be 75%. The other consideration here is that in India in particular, we were packing people like sardines. So when I first came back to India in 2008, the average square footage per person as a thumb rule that people used to take was 120 square foot per person. And it had actually gone down all the way towards 60-65 square foot per person. So one of the bets clearly is that for repetitive jobs, you have people working from their environment wherever they are. But for people who are coming into the office, you have a nicer, plusher environment, and of course, you need a lot more collaboration because you'll have all these people coming in and going all the time, right?
That's why Amit's business model works best, because they're at about 55-60 square feet per person. It works beautifully well, So, like you rightly said, Anshul, but you can't go lower than this. The threshold we already reached, and I think going back to Nikhil's point, I think when new employees come, they also aspire to have an environment at workplace. You cannot have a differentiation of your employees, from the perspective of, what is your office like? Because a majority of the young millennials want a cool working space today. And that reflects the company's philosophy, all of that. So Nikhil, usme bhi thoda sa, you will have to look into those things because millennials love to, when they're coming out new jobs, they want a cool office space. They want their, all of that. So it's totally a mix of everything.
Anshul and Jaggi, here's a question for you. Do you think a correction in commercial and residential real estate is due? If so, do you think it's good for the market overall? And what will the implications be of a 30% correction, let's say?
Okay, so I'll take that before Anshul takes
Yeah,
that.
no, absolutely. You take that.
Last year was a bumper year for commercial real estate in India. We leased about
Right.
45 million net leasable, gross was 60
Right.
million, whatever, 45 million. It was a bumper year. Similar in the US, similar in the European markets also, no doubt. You can't make that as a benchmark. So if you compare last as a benchmark of 45, then you say this year, if you do 20 or 30 million, yes, you're down by quite a percentage. But what's really happening, that is the quantum of space may get reduced, but the quality of good space is getting absorbed. The quality of good tenancy is still holding very strong. The fundamentals of commercial real estate are very strong. Asset classes from a perspective of investors, yield to money that they invest is very, very, very positive from that perspective. Yes, your correction number, I would say 30% not on rentals, but I would say between 10 to 15% on the offtake of space will definitely happen. And that what will happen is the men and the boys will get eradicated, and men and boys will get separated across various office asset classes, which means the co-working spaces, the banking, even from the developer side, you will see the men and the boys getting segregated. So it's a good time for cleanup, but I don't see that office markets will yield below a particular percentage in terms of rentals, for the simple reason India has been at between a 10 to 12% vacancy, gross vacancy across the cities, Nikhil. And if you take that as a 600 million market and take 72 million square feet as vacancy, that would go to about 100 million. And if you add about 30 million year on year, so you're not that bad from that perspective of 3 years stock. So the demand the demand will keep going. So I think from that perspective, we are pretty safe. What part of the commercial real estate will get affected from that is the retail business. If you take commercial as a whole, the retail business is getting affected because like all of us are seeing that people are still not having the guts to go back to socially engage themselves in environments which are air conditioned and other things. So cinemas and all that will definitely get affected for some time.
I'll take the residential real estate since Jagmeet kind of gone. And I think realistically, residential real estate land has already corrected significantly. We just don't know it. And I'm not talking about hard numbers, as in your headline numbers. But if you look at where the residential prices are today, they are at a discount to 2012 prices, which means in real terms, obviously it's down. Almost nobody is buying residential land on an outright basis, and therefore basically it's either JV, JD, development management type agreements where there's a notional value of land, but ultimately the land price is what the selling price of units will fetch, right? So land price is almost it's built in at a price at which the sale price would be. So my argument would be if sale price is lower than 2012 prices, then your land prices are already discounted. On the commercial reality, I think 2019 probably will not be repeated in the near future. But long term, India's demand's been about 30 odd million square foot a year, and I think that will probably continue. The money is still chasing commercial reality. So just if you look at the big boys between Blackstone, Brookfield, and the REIT that Reheja just listed, and just in the last 4 to 6 weeks, in the deals which are either done or in process of getting completed, $3.5 billion got put out by big boys like Brookfield, Blackstone, and the investors into Reheja REIT. Now, $3.5 billion in the middle of COVID in Indian commercial real estate. I mean, they're smart guys. These are some of the biggest landlords around the world. And commercial reality is okay because it's still an average rent in India is about $1.3 a square foot a year. Or even lower than that, because if you look at Bangalore, most of the places are 70-80 rupees, so it's about $1 per square foot per year. Pune had just gone to about 1.2, but the dollar is kind of appreciated, so about $1.1. And I think that's the kind of right kind of benchmark, because most of these guys who are taking space, they're basically US outsourced companies, etc., dollar earning. So as long as the rents are around $1, I think I don't think there'll be a problem. There'll always be people going for premium, which has been a big trend in the last 4 or 5 years, flight to premium. And there'll be people who are willing to pay more. But I don't think that commercial pricing is going to correct significantly.
Yeah, and also, Anshul, the residential side, the Prestige, I can tell you this much, that we have seen a huge offtake in the last 3 months in ready to move in units, and more importantly, the luxury units. They suddenly start selling the golf villas, all of that. People are buying because they want to stay outside the city. So that's a huge spurt. And if you notice, even in the US, that's a trend where people are going outside city, outside Brooklyn, outside Manhattan, buying those big homes and moving in the outskirts. So
if they don't come to office, you buy residential. We all move into residential business.
So Nikhil, a lot of money will still hover around commercial real estate and residential real estate. So the balance might come to the stock market.
I think we can have the next webinar on real estate prices, but I think we have 7 minutes in from the end. So I just wanted to give quick perspectives, right? On essentially, we all are talking about, work from home. So we just did the poll right now, and the majority said that distributed work, which basically would mean that you would have a base location. Nikhil said 25%. Our perspective is 60-70%. About 20-25 in satellite location and about 5-10% at home. So Jaggi, quickly, your perspective, what according to you will be the new workspace model for companies?
So de-densification is the key. Contactless entry into the buildings will be a norm, and MEP upgradation of buildings where air cycle changes in terms of air conditioning, toilet, all that mechanical ventilation on all of that will be the new norm going forward. And more importantly, I think personal hygiene across offices, and you won't have sweaty arm bags in the elevator anymore. You will see people getting more used to a particular way of living in life. So I think that will be the couple of things.
So Nikhil, what factors, I know you said, everybody's working from home and you're happy to let them work from home, but clearly from a strategy standpoint, right, you must think about your office space, real estate, 2020 and beyond. Any thoughts for how you're thinking about it?
Yeah, I don't perceive a situation where we would have more than 30-40% of the people having dedicated office space at any time soon, like at least not over the next 1 year. For me personally, Amit, to be really candid, I don't own a lot of real estate. I'm hoping the prices crash. Anshul and Jaggi will not like that, so I can actually buy something. But yeah, I would say 60% work from home at least, at the minimum.
That's a new benchmark, Rob.
So we are service providers like you. We are brokers like you. Do you care if the prices come down or go up? No.
I know. But
you advise clients, you do deals.
Sir, hamari pagar kaun dega?
So Anshul, what percentage of your clients are moving away from conventional offices and partnering with, obviously it's a question dear to my heart, with flex spaces and considering work from home, work near home? Is that thought process getting shaped up of distributed work?
Yeah, I think we didn't do enough justice to that part, and I think that could be another model that's emerging, which is probably more of a hub and spoke rather than one massive center. And in that, I think the flex office spaces will end up benefiting. So even if you look at what happened post the global financial crisis in 2008-9, for the next couple of years, fitted out offices became a norm because capex became a lot more expensive for people, and therefore the developers who could put money into fit out the office space for their tenants really scored quite well. And I think you'll probably have a similar situation here. Capex is tight for everyone, and therefore today the difference is that there are people like yourself who have the ability to fit out a nice cool environment for people to work in. And I think, therefore, in your space, there'll definitely be a consolidation. The big boys, maybe 5 or 6 across India, will remain. And if you can ride out, and for people who can ride out this particular crisis, you'll come out very, very strong on the other side. because I think both for the reasons of capex and for the reasons of distributed workspace.
Great. Soma, quickly, final question to you. At Otis, what does the future workplace look like? Are you going to go everybody back to the main office or a distributed workspace model?
Okay. You know, the current pandemic situation is evolving constantly. And so it's a long learning curve, more than what we anticipated. So it's a little early for us to tell what the future holds. But what I can say is whenever all of us are ready to return, the situation could be different, as the way we work would have definitely changed compared to the pre-COVID situation. So certainly it could be some kind of an hybrid model, some home satellite offices, work from home office. So it's going to be a hybrid model. That's what I would, I mean, I can think about it. And also because we have seen the benefits of work from home. So a lot of good things have happened. So we got to take all those good things and then create that ecosystem for us as we move forward. And one of the things which I see is the maximization of the square foot usage in the buildings for and providing more flexibility in the workplace. So currently at Otis, we are focusing on developing a safe and healthy process for the people to return to work. And so in summary, what I would say is the constant thing is COVID has pushed all of us to be a lot more agile, a lot more cost conscious, technology adoption, and it's been a great equalizer in the organization.
So I believe there are, thank you, Suma. I believe there are a few questions, and I know Jaggi, you need to leave, but if the other panelists could stay back and, Sumit, if you can address a few participant questions, that'll be great.
Sure. So, Jaggi, I'll ask the first question from you. So the question is, many major companies have announced permanent work from home or remote working policies. What do you see happening to the physical workspace of organizations? Do you see them giving it up, or will it continue in some capacity?
So I think I've been shouting loud as much as I can from the top of the roof that this is a short-term kind of thing. Keep in mind the resilience of companies, resilience of people. And yes, there may be a balance going forward, that there may be a small percentage of, say, 25-30% working from home. But because of the other 75% need to de-densify their office, the office space requirement will not change. In fact, it will only grow. And that's what my summary would be.
Perfect. Thank you, Jaggi. So the next question is, Anshul, you can take a stab at it. Companies are funding their employees to buy office furniture to curtail working or operative issues from home. What is your view on this intent?
Look, I mean, there are always progressive companies and rich companies who can afford to do that. I would say maybe 90% of the companies are not able to. But obviously, this intent, I think, partly comes from employee welfare, partly also comes from legal issues which could arise as a result of working in a kind of non-aligned chairs and so on and so forth. I think Soma spoke about it before. So I think it's partly legal, partly employee welfare. I think the thought process originates from US and Europe, where legal frameworks are a lot tighter. And most companies are kind of seeing, as I said before as well, that the model of work pre-COVID and post-COVID is going to change, and for certain, more and more people will have that flexible option. And if people are continuing to work from home 1 day, 2 days a week, you might as well set up an office, whether you fund it yourself or your company is nice enough to fund it for you.
Next is an interesting question. How do you plan to orient and integrate new joinees in your organization with their teams remotely? Nikhil, Suma, any points around over there?
Sure. Suma, do you want to take?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, this has been a big learning for us in the last few months, because what happened is we had rolled out a lot of offers, and the joining time of the employees were coming, I would say, in the month of starting April, it was happening. And initially for the week or two, we said, let's kind of postpone and then have them join. But then we knew the situation is here to last. And then we kind of oriented them completely through virtual. We ensured that all the IT assets are provided to them. So we were able to do a reasonably good job in terms of orienting them. And in fact, for many of the people, it was less distraction. We were able to give the complete attention to the new employees when they came on board, instead of they just going and waiting in somebody's cabin for them to come. So when I look back, the entire process is a lot more efficient. And Otis as a company, we spend a lot of time with the people in terms of getting them acquainted with the Otis culture and Otis absolutes. And that's extremely important for us. And then comes the job responsibilities, the job role. I said we did quite well in that particular area. Yes, sometimes it's always nice to take the person for a cup of tea or a lunch. That's not going to happen. But other than that, from the work standpoint, it was pretty effective.
Perfect. Nikhil, this is a very interesting question, a bit more futuristic. You can take a stab.
Sure.
It says, hi Nikhil, are you of the view that remote working may slowly accelerate the path for automation that could
I think so, yeah.
replace workforce?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I think so. I think automation, IoT, I think homes, to give credit to Anshul and Jaggi, I think homes have not significantly changed in many years. I think working from home will expedite the rate of change in how homes are designed. I think homes will become not just a place where you go to bed or you spend time with your family, but places where you can, work, collaborate, spend time with family and everything else you used to do earlier. So definitely, I think it'll exaggerate and expedite the trends that we were seeing towards automation. And I think it'll be I think homes, more efficient, better homes, I think will improve the quality of life significantly.
I think redesigning of homes and residential complexes is a big, obviously, opportunity in front of this industry. And what became norm was a clubhouse for each residential complex. Maybe the clubhouse will now have an office in each, run by Amit's team. In each complex. Yeah, I mean that's a possibility. It's an absolute possibility.
So there are a lot of other questions. What we'll do is we will respond to these questions. Anshul, I'll have the last question from you. Do you think the demand for commercial real estate will fall due to growth of remote work and the realities of painful economic downturn?
In the short term, it'll absolutely have an impact. So this year, the demand's probably going to be down between 40 to 50%. But then we were coming off probably one of the best years ever for commercial real estate, 2019. I think in the long run, we'll probably maintain an average of about 30 odd million square foot a year, which accommodates the thought process around remote working. So I think perhaps between, maybe a 20 to, on an industry average perspective, I'm talking about probably about 20 odd % people will sort of work from home at an industry average 30,000 foot level. In some companies more, in some companies less. And that will certainly have some impact. But I think as the companies will grow richer and more companies will emerge as they always do. As a result of the technology acceleration and so on and so forth, everybody will need space. So at an aggregate level, I don't think the space demand will go down. Per company level, the space demand may go down.
Great. Thank you everyone for your responses. Over to you, Amit, for your closing remarks.
Guys, it's been a fantastic 60 minutes with each of you. I personally have learned a lot and hope the participants have as well. Thank you for all the participants to make this a success and our panel for their candid views. Some very, very interesting conversations. We all hope whatever is the new model of working, the recovery starts soon and we can all get back to the new normal. So guys, stay safe and stay happy. And thank you for attending the webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Good day.